Right, so just about some days or weeks ago, people had been asking about the anniversary of the African Free Continental Trade Area and the achievements so far. What have they been able to do, and then what has been the impact on local economies across the countries that are supposed to be part of the AFTA? This has been going on, and this has been the discussion on the topic on the lips of the man in the streets. And just when people had enough questions to be asking, what is now known as the almighty PAPS, that's the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, also set in. And this is a huge bang for the AFTA, and you will see if we show you the videos that this was a coordination between banks in Africa and of course the AFTA Secretariat, and this is something very forward for the whole of the continent and something that is supposed to bridge the financial gaps, the trade gaps, and everything that we've been talking about on the continent in unionizing, making the whole African continent one continent when it comes to the free trade area. We had been asking questions about the single currency as well. We think this is a step in the right direction towards it. But tonight, we want to analyze and assess what the PAPS is, what its challenges will be, what it actually is set in to do, and so on and so forth. So it's a very interesting discussion. Some people have likened it to the local mobile money platforms that we have. Others have likened it to the Ghana Interbank Payment System, and so on and so forth. What do you think of PAPS? We want to bring it down to the layman. We want to understand it ourselves. We want you to understand. And if you want to do a transaction here in Ghana between yourself or your company or your setup and a partner company in South Africa, how do you do it instantly? This is what we want to talk about tonight. This is what we want people to understand tonight. And we have very important guests who understand the trade area and understand the need for the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. So you want to stick and stay with us tonight. We don't want to call it mobile money platforms, but we will hear from our guest tonight who would help us digest this whole issue. It's going to be very interesting. You want to stick and stay with us. This is the bottom line. We say business at the speed of thoughts. And of course, my name is Kwesi Afie. We are coming your way live from our studios here at Ridge in Accra. We are live on DSTV channel 277, and we are live on our Facebook page, Chairman Kwesi Afie, and of course, Metro TV News page. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back. Right, you're welcome back from that break. And as I've introduced to you early on, we are talking about the Pan-African Payment and Settlement Systems tonight. It's a very interesting discussion for all of us tonight. You know, our Vice President, His Excellency, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has been a champion of digitization and digitalization here in Ghana. And so in a program of this sort, he was the very good person to do the launching. He launched it last week. Let's have a look at it.
Allow member states to transfer funds within Africa on the same day and at a lower cost is set to benefit Africa's exporters and importers by providing a faster, safer, and secure transfer of funds. Businesses and traders would no longer have to spend days waiting for the confirmation of receipts of funds to facilitate trade, as payments will be cleared and settled in real time. It provides a simplified process that reduces the costs and complexities of foreign exchange for cross-border transactions between African markets. The biggest beneficiaries of PAPS will be small and medium-sized businesses and investors who make high-value payments across the borders, and consumers who have been using informal means to make cross-border payment. My humble opinion, PAPS is an African solution to an African problem. And it is the most practical and the most important achievement in payment system integration on the African continent since independence from colonial rule. It is the closest, perhaps is the closest Africa has come to the benefits of a common currency, and we are achieving this through a common digital platform. We as Africans should be very proud of this historic feat, which demonstrates how the application of digital technology can solve many problems that we are facing individually and collectively. And I want to ask all central banks, we want to see PAPS really become fully operational across all the banks on the continent. And in this regard, Afrexim Bank, AFCFTA, and the central bank governors, you have a key role to play. But for the central bank governors, it is very, very important to help accelerate the process by making sure your respective national switches, the respective national switches in each of these countries are connected directly into PAPS. Why do I say so? Because if we connect the national switches, that means you are connecting all your banks. So we do not have to rely on individual banks connecting into PAPS.
Right. So I was just making some notes from the Vice President's speech, particularly about connecting the national switches and some of the challenges that we should be expecting from some of the countries that are supposed to be locked down. But it looks like all it's about the excitement of this platform. We'll be going or delving into what it actually is for you if this is the first time you're hearing about it and so on. However, let me quickly introduce my guest to you who have just listened to the Vice President of Ghana talk about the importance and the necessity of this platform. I'll ask them what they feel about it and what their thinking is about the Vice President's speech and whether we are to be excited about a platform like this. In fact, we are in a country where we have most of our traders, precisely Guta, fighting its partners in Nigeria. We have other countries having this same problem. So if we have a platform like this, are we to be excited? Is it going to solve some of the challenges that we have? Let me quickly introduce to you my guest, Mr. Louis Yao Afol is joining us via Zoom. Mr. Louis Yao Afol is a trade practitioner and an executive director of After Policy Network Group. So he is very interested in this topic and, of course, the payment platform, because we have been on After's neck and they have been a partner to After in making sure the After dream is realized. So he's very much interested in this topic. Mr. Afol, if you can hear me, thank you very much for joining us and a very good evening to you. Can you please unmute your mic for me?
Good evening.
Right, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good evening to your viewers and good evening to Ziad.
Right. So let me once you've mentioned his name, let me introduce Ziad as well. So Ziad Hamui is a chartered logistician, regional integration advocate, and passionate Pan-Africanist with close to 2 decades of private sector experience in logistics and transport in Ghana, as well as a decade of development expertise in West Africa. We couldn't have had a better panel than these 2 men we have here tonight. So, Ziad, good evening to you as well. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me also.
I hope you're doing very well. So let me begin with you. Let me begin with you. You heard the Vice President, and I know you know too much about the Pan-African payment and settlement system. Before I delve into what it is and so on and so forth, are we as a continent to be excited about this platform? Is it all about the glory of it, or there are things we have to take our time and critically look at before we jump on?
Thank you for the question. That's a great question, I think. And first of all, let me join in congratulating the whole of Africa for this achievement. The launching of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System has not come from nothing. It has come following an extensive piloting phase that tested the system and stressed the system across the West Africa Monetary Zone, WAMSI countries, before coming up to officially launch it. And now, let me first of all, in full disclosure, say that the technicalities of this platform is beyond me, and I'll do my best to tackle it from a trade aspect. Now, the reason the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System is concerning everyone who is involved in trade across Africa is because it is one of the three main components of international trade. You have finance, you have market access, and then you have the logistics. And these are the three elements that would allow you to perform international trade. For finance, the Pan-African and Payment Settlement and System allows you to reduce the cost of your transactions by dealing in local currencies. So if I am based in Ghana and I'm selling something to someone who is based in South Africa, I can sell him in cedis and he can collect it in rands. If he is also selling me, he sells me in rands and I pay in cedis. So it eliminates the need for additional currencies, third-party currencies, where previously you had to go somewhere to open your letter of credit to use a foreign currency, losing some money in terms of financial transactions, and then later on reconverting that back to the local currency at destination, and that is inefficient. In fact, that might explain part of why trans-African trade has been low for some time, because apart from the fact that the market linkages are not that obvious, but the cost of the financial transactions is a disincentive, in addition to many other factors, of course.
Right, I'm happy about
Now,
that. So for you, because of, at least for that reason of the cost of financial transactions and the easiness to transfer funds for doing business now, we should be excited about it. I'll come back to you for the points on access and logistics, which are the two other legs, as you mentioned, for business success. So let me come to Mr. Yao Aful, Louis Yao Aful. For you, should we, as Ziad is saying, be excited about this platform as a continent? Can you please unmute your mic for me, Mr. Aful?
Yes.
Right.
I think that I join in congratulating this long-term journey, which was started almost 2016. And I think that a lot of funding has gone into it and a lot of cooperation. I am excited as well because the transfer system in Africa has been very embarrassing to a large extent because it's such that funds have to go outside Africa. 80% of funds have to go outside Africa for settlements, and it takes about 2 to 3 days before it can be settled for an African transaction. So it goes via outside Africa, 80%, 3 days, and then comes down. And like Jad was saying, you are losing close to estimated amount of about $5 billion. That is an infrastructural fund that can help about 4 countries put together or more. And so that loop alone is an excitement one because we are now on our own as Pan-Africans. And again, another point that makes me happy because it has come at a time, right time when Africa is boosting intra-African trade, goods and services. And sometimes you and I can testify. If you don't have a Visa card, you don't have a MasterCard, sometimes you're trying to arrange maybe booking a hotel, reservation. How do you do the convertibilities? How do you have to denominate it in dollars, hard currency? And it becomes additional cost to you, especially if you go to some of these Francophone, the safer zones. Most of them even switch away from the dollar to the euros. They like more of the euros. And so since you are having disparities in terms of currencies, either dollar or euro, at your disconvenience, with this new settlement, it is one of its kind that you can settle within your own currency, and the recipient also receives without having to go through this difficulty of long delays and also the value in terms of paying more when you have to denominate it. And finally, I'm happy because we are giving ourselves some time where, like the Vice President, His Excellency Baumia said, we are going to have most of these central banks switching their national switches so that they can fuse into the PAPs. That is a very key point, because at this point, it is not done. And that is why, because it's not done, you don't have all the commercial banks hooked to it. That is a big difference. So yes, the central banks have done it, but there's a need for all the national switches to be open to PAPs so that automatically commercial banks will just be feeding indirectly. As it stands now, you have commercial banks who have to be hooked onto step by step. So it's a good news for all of us. And I think that we need to do more of the sensitization to let it become a sustainable progress.
So I am happy about it as well. Gentlemen, I'm happy about it as well. But I want to focus on a few issues that can crop up, because we have at least about 41 different currencies on the African continent. And we have said, yes, that you can send it in your local currency, and whoever you are sending it to will also receive in his or her local currency. But will this not be a barrier?
I don't know whether you're asking Ziad or you're asking.
No, I'm asking you before I come to Ziad.
Anyway, for now, the PAPS is staying within the WAMI zone. That is the West Africa Economic Zone. It is not yet integrated to the rest of Africa. Even if it's done, it's not going to be a barrier, because the settlement is well planned, saying that you have central banks, and then Afri-Exim Bank is really doing this backups. Afri-Exim Bank is not only doing backups, is promoting close to about 5 billion and more, about $8 billion into this project. And this $8 billion is to support what we call the disparities that will come when you have trade transactions among few countries. Some countries will trade more volumes, others might not trade more volumes. And so when it comes to the settlement, those who are trading less will be at a certain disadvantage. So perhaps our Afri-Exim Bank has made available about earmarked $8 billion, where $500 million is supposed to be supporting the WAMI zone for now, so that the only barrier we are going to foresee is that at the end of the settlement time, you will have some countries having more volumes and the others not having, and therefore the settlement will be kind of lopsided. So this fund is to support that kind of gap that will arise because of the various trade volumes or trade differentials, not a barrier in terms of currency, because after all, it is a settlement by settlement among central banks and among countries, where you do have the individual directly involved, as would be you trying to move to physically move to a different country to go and transact. No, it is an e-based kind of system, and so it eliminates the human human activity. Number one, it also eliminates delays. So I'm not foreseeing the kind of barrier because of currency, differences. No.
Right, Louis, let me go to Ziad, but I'll come back to you to ask you, and I'll ask Ziad the same question, that what will be the common denominator? What will be the rate of exchange? So Ziad, if you are listening to me, or if you can hear me, before you make the point of the access and logistics, which are the two other points you would add to your 3 points you were making, what will be the common denominator? I'm in Ghana, I want to send, like you cited, money to somebody in South Africa. The person is supposed to receive it in rand. What is the exchange rate? What will be the basis for the differentials in our currencies. And that's why I asked the question of the currency.
Interestingly, that if you are sending that money much closer than to South Africa, you'll already run into issues with regard to the legality of your currency. But I don't really want to dwell on that one. And I think I understand your question in the sense that we have 42 currencies in Africa, and currency is one of the reflections of the sovereignty of nations, right? Nations love their currency. It's part of what they are. And this particular question you raised brings me back to a discussion which we had a few months ago in Dakar at a conference which the UNECA organized in a hybrid forum. Louis and myself were part of it. I was moderating a session on the payment systems in Africa, and the conference itself was about single African currency, fintech, and digital currency. And one of the major discussions and debates at the time, and I'm mentioning that because it feeds directly into PAPS, because of the issue of the currency interconvertibility. And then the discussion was that while some perceive the single currency as the ultimate objective and the immediate objective, others were arguing that no, we need to first determine what are the interconvertibility rates between our currencies. And we need to actually, first of all, acknowledge these other currencies. You might be aware, for example, that in Ghana, franc CFA is not considered legal tender. So there are some of these, and this has some political backgrounds and ramifications, which hopefully the way the PAPS system is designed, it will circumvent some of these difficulties by creating a platform where all of the currencies, let's say, quote unquote, converge. And then it will be the back end that converts the currencies while the front end receives in local currencies. So if you deal in CFA, that's your own concern. There's a pool of CFA somewhere that is run on the back end by Afreximbank, which we need to acknowledge at least their role in the management and operation of the PAPS. So Afreximbank on the back end will be providing this kind of money supply that will be allowing the engine of the financial transaction system to be fueled, so that the money supply and the currency exchange rates will be held in a more or less stable way. Now, if you ask me who sets and determines the rates and what the mechanism is, that will be beyond me. But I am assuming, someone can correct me, is that it will be updated on a regular basis, most likely by the authority of the central bank or equivalent, on a daily basis, on a platform, something similar to what a Forex bureau would do every day. You have a rate that is determined, something similar to, for example, what customs does in Ghana on a weekly basis. But I am suspecting that we will be having something like a daily rate, like the Central Bank of Ghana does with the various currencies. So you will have this currency that is the currency exchange rate that reflects the parity of the currency, and based on that one, the exchanges takes place. Now, that's why I mentioned first that the PAPS was piloted in WAMZ countries for a really long time, longer than expected actually. They were planning to roll it out, I think, within 3 months of piloting. It extended by a few months beyond that for challenges and perceived challenges, which, to be honest with you, we are not very fully aware of what exactly were, but we can guess with 6 currencies in 2 regional economic communities and 15 countries, a lot can happen. In fact, that is why PAPS chose WAMZ countries to start with its piloting. Because if anything can go wrong with such a system, it will go wrong in the WAMZ countries. So let us manage the teething problems before we go there and start scratching our heads about what do we need to do with this. So when this arises, we'll do it like this. And if this doesn't work, we will tweak it to do this. So bottom line, I don't want to make it too complicated to people. All I have to say is that what goes under the hood of your engine doesn't matter as long as your car can take you from your destination to the other. And the PAPS is designed in such a way that once you are in the driving seats, it doesn't matter how the engine is being run, as well as is it well maintained. It will take you from point A to point B in the shortest and the best way possible.
Right. So thank you I am particularly interested in that point because of its sustainability. And that's why I started by asking whether we should be excited about it already or not. But gentlemen, kindly indulge me. Let me take a quick break. When we come back, there are other questions I'll put across before we round up. And there are questions coming up from our guests who are watching us tonight. I'm sure if I have the time, I'll try and read just one or two to get answers as well. So our number is on the screen. If you have any contribution to our discussions tonight, or if you have any question at all, you may want to put them across. Our discussion is on the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Right, so you're welcome back from the break. We are talking tonight about the Pan-African Payment and Settlement Systems. And this is a very great breakthrough for the whole of the African continent, and we are supposed to be excited about it. But of course, that doesn't stop us from critically looking at it and some of the situations that may rear their heads in the application of this system. And so tonight I've had on Zoom Mr. Louis Yao Afol, who is a trade practitioner, executive director of Tar Policy Network Group, and then the national president of Ghana Borderless Alliance, Mr. Ziad M. Hamui. He has a lot of expertise in logistics, regional integration, and Pan-Africanist as well. But let me quickly take you through. We've had some of the questions coming up so far since we began the show, asking what exactly is PAPS, and a few questions. So let me quickly run you through what it is. If the producer can project this on the screen for us, I'll take you through briefly in the next 1 minute, and then we come back to ask our questions to our panels. What is PAPS? It says the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System was introduced by the African Export and Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, in partnership with West Africa Monetary Institute, WAMI, to support cross-border retail payments within Africa. With the PAPS, payments for intra-African transactions can be paid in local currency and received by the beneficiary in its local currency. So take particular note of this. I think this is a very highlight that makes the whole thing beautiful. It says, with the PAPS, payments for intra-African transactions can be paid in local currency and received by the beneficiary in its local currency. Now this means that a buyer in Ghana can pay in cedis for goods imported from Cotonou, Benin, whilst the seller in Cotonou can receive the payment in the local West African CFA franc. So this is PAPS. And who can initiate payment on PAPS? Can everybody do it? Can I sit in my home, get onto my phone and do it? Now look at what it says. Those who are asking the question and thinking that it is or it can be equated to mobile money, just look at this one. It says, only authorized dealers, that's banks licensed by the Bank of Ghana, can initiate payments under the PAPS platforms in Ghana. And they can only do so upon receipt of prior approval from the Bank of Ghana. So this is the arrangement here in Ghana. You need to be authorized and given a license as an authorized dealer by the Bank of Ghana. And you can only do so when you have a receipt of approval from the Bank of Ghana. So where are the benefits, or what are the benefits of PAPS? Number one, it will facilitate cross-border payments within Africa and formalize some of the undocumented intra-African trades due to the prevalence of informal cross-border trade in Africa. Number two, it will eliminate the current high cost and lengthy correspondent banking procedures by facilitating trade and commerce via a simple, low-cost and risk-controlled payment clearing and settlement system. And number three, it will encourage seamless operation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement by the member African states. So if you want to initiate a payment system, these are the things you want to go through, or if you want to look at how beneficial it is for you or your business, this is it for you. That's some education for you there. Let me come back to my panel who are live on Zoom. And one other question that has come up is how different is this from some of the transfer platforms that we have, going into the bank and making a money transfer to maybe South Africa or to Cotonou through Western Union, through all the money transfer platforms, and even mobile money. How different is this? I mean, we don't have all the questions, all the answers. Let me get back to Mr. Louis Afful. And can we hear from you, sir? How different is this from the existing platforms that we have?
Thank you. I hope I can be heard.
Yes, we
quickly,
can hear you.
Let me quickly run through a bit of the last question you asked my colleague Ziad. In terms of the rates, we don't need to burden ourselves so much because it is central banks, and that kind of burden is what has been eliminated, whereby prior to that, the dollar or the hard currencies was the barrier, where we have to change into that before we're able to get to the other currency within the Africa. And so with this, with PAPs coming in, what it means is that once I want Naira, I don't need to burden myself which currency is going to be pitched against and at which rate, because the central banks are going to be at the forefront and they are going to help with the settlement. And so all I need is to give the instruction of what I want to transfer. If I'm transferring 1,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent of, let's say, 800 Naira, the denomination or the values or the exchange rates will not be my headache. But that has been piloted a program within the central bank to ensure that those value differentials will be done at the end of settlements. Now, coming back to the differences, the biggest difference is that this is to facilitate intra-African payment system. This is different because you are no more going to have 80% of the settlement going outside Africa before coming here. All the 80% is going to be done within Africa. All the other ones, some of them are internally bound fintech applications. This one is among all central banks, such that the biggest difference is that they are going to take the hard currency, which is at this point the dollar or the pounds or the euros, out of the picture. And also the speed with which is going to be done, the settlement, that is about 7 seconds or 10 seconds. Compared to the prior ones, you have about 3 days. Maximum, if you are doing transfers, you take about 2 to 3 days. And so that is the biggest difference. And that must be acknowledged. And that must be really, really put in the right context. Again, another biggest difference is that though it has been started within the West African or WAMI region, it's going to be coordinated among the other African economies very, very soon. Some of the other applications we are talking about cannot go that length and do not have that capacity in terms of the settlement. And I made mention of the fact that Afrasian Bank have put about $8 billion.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you're looking at the level of cost to which is reducing. You are looking at the speed. You are looking at the fact that 80% of transactions that goes outside Africa is all eliminated. Most of the internal fintech and applications we are seeing are operating differently from this. And finally, another bigger difference is that the central bank becomes more or less the centermost of the whole the spin, because they are going to regulate all the commercial banks to this whole platform. It's not an individual basis. For example, if I own a fintech application, I can go ahead and be doing whatever I want to do. But when it comes to PAPs, it is central bank to PAPs and the institutions.
Someone, sorry to cut you in, but someone says, even though you are talking about a full control by the central banks of these participating countries, and this is coming from Winston, how do each of these countries control inflation within their jurisdictions? That is what he says, and you'll land on that so that I would quickly run back to.
I think that now you are taking us to you are going to macroeconomics. And the quick one is that we are not looking at single currency approach, which Ziad made mention of the dialogue we had.
Yes.
If you are looking at single currency approach, then you are looking at the convergence criteria. And convergence criteria, you are going to look at inflation and all that. But this is a settlement platform. It has nothing to do with convergence criteria and the macroeconomic indicators that is needed to send transfers. That is a different whole discussion altogether. If you are going to transfer money, somebody send you dollar through Wave and you receive the value, it doesn't look at inflation, look at the exchange rate at the time. It looks at the settlement agreement at the time. That is what PAPS is all about. It is not bringing in the kind of single currency approaches, no.
So let me come to you now, Ziad. Someone is asking, and I'll put this to you before you answer that question on the differences we have with this platform and the other platforms that we have in our various countries. So, Ziad, someone is asking about the inflation. Of course, this has been answered. But for you, what is the primary difference with some of the transfer platforms that we have with some of the banks already?
Well, I'll answer that one, but first, I think I would like to comment on the excellent slides about what PAPS is. And I want to have my own version of what PAPS is not.
Okay.
And so I wanted to say that PAPS is not a magic wand, which you will wave and all of a sudden the whole of the African finance will become digitized or digitalized. It's not a pill that you can swallow and then the next day everyone will become connected. It's not a mandatory. It's not mandatory. So it doesn't mean that everyone is forced to hook up, but of course it's very useful. So the central banks will be encouraged to hook up so that they will also drag in the whole financial body. Now, here's where the knots become a little bit more interesting. It's not available to informal cross-border traders in the useful form, in its current form. What do I mean? I mean, if you are a trader or in a border community who is engaged in cross-border trades, and you would like to somehow access the PAPS platform in order to help you, first of all, find markets across, and second, to settle the payments in your local currencies. The way it's currently designed as a state-to-state or central bank to central bank or formal bank to formal bank is a bit difficult for an informal sector to use because bankability is a challenge in the first place for some of these smaller traders. And keep in mind that the main purpose of PAPS is to build the money supply and to build economies of scale so that your currencies and your economies become bigger, stronger, more resilient, and so that you can become more stabilized as you exchange your currencies against each other. Otherwise, there will remain this volatility, which has to be managed, and eventually it will be managed. But the less you manage it, the more efficient it becomes, the less costly it becomes for the back end, and it becomes more sustainable. And lastly, PAPS is not useful enough as a standalone solution if you don't factor in the other initiatives that will add synergy into it. And I'm referring here to the African Continental Free Trade Area. I'm talking about, for example, the MANSA due diligence platform. There's a lot of things, and the African Trade Observatory, the African Trade Monitor, and all of these feed into boosting intra-African trade in different ways. Now, for PAPS, it's completely about finance. It's not about economics. It's not about how to control your economies through inflation and macroeconomic policy setting and stuff like that. So I think that is how I wanted to approach the answer to your question.
Right. Thank you very much. But let me ask you, we're almost rounding up, but let me ask you this, that you are a great stakeholder of this whole platform that we are talking about. It's a platform hinged on technology, as you started explaining early on. Have we considered the security of the platform, the security of the technology against subscribers and against fraudsters, against people who would want to compromise the system, since the basis of it is trade?
That's a very good question, actually, and I believe that it is on the heart and the minds of the Cyber Security Agency of Ghana and all of the other African countries to make sure that the fundamental infrastructure that is supporting the intra-African trade is built on a solid system that prevents it from being hacked, so that either the documentation remains secure and the transactions remain secure. And that is why, as a start, it has to be through an authorized economic operator. So not any bank can decide to put up a placard and say, I am doing transfers using PAPs. So in a sense, that is, for example, why it is different than a Momo operator, an old Momo operator. Because today, Momo operators can find out from your ID number everything about you with information, but that is a different issue altogether, right? So cybersecurity is very fundamental to the success of digitization of trade and finance. And we need to make sure that Ghana does not remain the only one who has this concern. Nigeria also has something. I was reading something about their own also cybersecurity initiatives. Other countries have also, but we need to have some kind of concerted efforts. And I am sure that the PAPS management is not oblivious to the need to have consultations on building an architecture that is resilient to hacking and that is conformant to cybersecurity requirements.
Right. Thank you very much. Let me come to you, Louis. Maybe you may have something to add to Ziad's comment on the security. And then after that, I'll ask you whether our partners, the players, the importers, the exporters are well educated on this PAPS enough to be able to begin using it, especially in the WAMSI zone.
Thank you very much. I think that for now, security is being has been worked upon a lot. I listened to the interview by the manager of PAPS, and he said that they've met a lot of world certifications. They've gone to a lot of cyber piloting security systems. They've put a lot of that in place, said that for now they are very certain it will ward off these kind of fears. That is what I can say when it comes to the current security. A lot of measures have been put in place, a lot of systems have been put in place, a lot of certifications have gone on, and a lot of expertise have also gone into it, and they have really put up a lot of backups so that it will be a kind of accessibility and encrypts. So that is what I can say with regard to the security. With regard to the last issue that you asked, I think that sensitization has not gone too far because it is at the pilot stages. And I think that it was acknowledged during the launch that we all have to be on board, foreign diplomatic missions, stakeholders like Zia's firm, my firm, all other stakeholders who, fintechs, we all have to be on board to really explain, to sensitize the public about this whole Pan-African payment system. So it is ongoing. We are not there yet. And I think I know that I'll be coming out with some programs to support those who really want to be sensitized as and when time really. So we are not fully there yet. It's ongoing.
This question is from Daniel Yeboah, and he says, I am in Ghana. I have been to Egypt before. Currently, I want to buy cars from Egypt. What will be the price ceiling? How much can I send through the PAP system to Egypt for my partner to be able to send the cars to me?
I don't know, before Ziad comes, I just want to quickly say that before PAPS came, you will go to your bank and instruct your bank to do that transaction for you. So what is the cost of the car when you check in Egypt? If it is $10,000, before PAPS came, how much do you need to get that dollars? If you know the equivalent
the transfer charges and all that will come in.
This is what PAPS will eliminate. What you'll be paying at the banks, what I know, is the administrative charges that you normally would do to a bank. But you don't have to struggle now to pay in that hard currency of dollars. You have to pay in your CD equivalent at the settlement stage, and the transfer will be made. The person will receive in that Egyptian currency. This is what PAPS has come to do. It is not saying that you won't pay anything at all. Even prior to that, when you are doing LCs or whatever you want to do, you pay certain administrative charges. So that is the difference. Find out the price you want to buy your product. Look at the equivalents. When you go to the commercial bank that hook to PAPS, they will give you all the advice. They will give you all the details of how much you're supposed to pay in cedis. eliminating all those bottlenecks.
So it doesn't matter the amount, the size of the amount you want to send over the platform. No matter how much, $1 million, you can still use the platform.
For now, I am not aware about $1 million. It is about how much do you want to transfer? Let's look at it from that angle. How much do you want to transfer? What is the cost of the transaction? Okay, if we know within even Ghana that per the Bank of Ghana regulations, there's a certain amount of transfer that needs certain, what do you call it, legal proofs or backing, about beyond $10,000 or something. So those ones does not mean that you are doing away with the banking regulations or the Bank of Ghana regulation when it comes to foreign exchange. No. That is why we are saying that it is not about trading in dollars. It's not about foreign exchange. It is about sending money, which in your own currency. So if you are not sending dollars, so whatever transaction you want to transact, in my opinion, that you want to send outside, the banks per the PAPs will be able to transfer it for you, because even prior to PAPs, you were sending any other amount outside Ghana per meeting all the regulations that you are supposed to meet.
Right, so let me come to you on that same point, Ziad. I'm sure you've been listening to that.
Yes. Basically, I want to oversimplify it to whoever is listening. If I'm sitting in Ghana, and if I want to buy a car in Egypt that costs 100,000 cedis, because all I care about is how much it costs in cedis. Right. My bank account is in cedis. I will be debited from my cedi account, the cost of that car. And that's all I know about. And then there will be some banking charges that go in. The transaction goes immediately. He receives his money. He sends me my card. He receives in Egyptian pounds. He also doesn't care about how much the Egyptian pound compares against the pound or the yen or the euros or the dollar or any other. Because he's proposing to sell me for 100,000. I don't care how much he gets in his currency. He doesn't care how much I pay in my currency. He's selling at a rate. I'm paying at a rate. I take it or I leave it. And so it becomes, I know the reason why the many questions are coming, because we have heard them from the business community. People are not understanding why they don't need any offshore bank accounts anymore in foreign reserves. Lots of people don't understand.
Right.
But of course, you still need to have your euros and dollars when you are dealing with Europe and the US.
Exactly.
But if you are dealing with Africa, you only need your African currency, and that's all that matters.
Wow. I think that's a very insightful one. You don't need an offshore account to be able to transact business on the PAPS platform. You only need to raise your money within your local currency, and you're able to transact your business anywhere in Africa. From our gentlemen here tonight, it is a very good platform to use, and make sure you are comfortable with it to use it. If you are an importer or an exporter or whichever business you are in, if you have to transact business across the borders of Ghana, make sure that you use the PAPS platform. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time tonight. Mr. Ziad Hamui is the National President, Ghana Borderless Alliance, and a logistician, expert, a Pan-Africanist, and a whole lot that you can talk about. Mr. Louis Yao Aful is a trade practitioner and executive director after Policy Network Group. I am happy to have had you virtually, but still in the studio tonight with a very insightful thoughts that you've given us tonight. I'm grateful for you, and I'm sure our audience have learned a lot. And to those of you who gave us the number of text messages and the questions, we appreciate your time as well. My name is Kwesi Afri. I hope you have enjoyed the show. Good evening to you all.